Um, Hi. So, um, I was thinking about a few things in terms of, I mean, there seems as if there's a lot of frustration going in the world at large. Um, I mean, it's ongoing. I mean, we didn't start the fire. It's just that the internet is bringing information, globally compacted in such a way that you can get certain things, you can even find certain things, and that this can be done. There's somebody's talked about, oh, somebody can print out or should be able to print out like the kind of like a biological code, such that they could print out a disease with the right ingredients, the right biochemicals. They could print out a disease that could kill millions of people or something like that. The New Zealand shooter, um, that was, watched that snuff film and a few times. And one thing that I noticed that okay, so I watched it 3 times, right? And somebody's like, "Well, why would you watch this thing 3 times?" And I said, "Well, the first time was just to see it." And they're like, "Why?" And I'm like, "Well, even when they had those beheadings, I wanted to see it, right? See, like, okay, is it real? Is it Memorex? Is it real? Is it not real? Right?" And then just the gravity of that, a snuff film, like, I don't know. I wouldn't watch pornography with kids, but a snuff film like this at this level, I wanted to see it. So I watched it and I thought, okay, once is enough. This thing is absolutely um, ridiculous in how it was emotion free. The guy was just emotion free, just chopping through things, right? And but it made me consider, the whole left right paradigm, and the idea of immigration expansion and the conflicts of culture that seem to be happening relative to people's idealism within that culture, and how they're not, a lot of people are not mutable to what's happening in their lives. And anyway, so I watched this a second time because something about the first time caught me, and it was beyond just the the kind of very casual approach to murder. It was an ambient factor that only people that are awake to their environment immediately, as giving them some sort of an echo, like an envelope of their universe, right? The people that are woke say, "Oh, I'm woke," right? Those people might be able to identify with this, or at least they're more in tune to it, or they find significance in it, right? And so what I noticed was, I was noticing the music in the guy's car as he was leading up to the murder, right? And that was, some of it was in it was some, uh, I don't know, maybe it sounded like some like Scottish old world hymn, old world music, something. That part didn't catch me, right? Meaning I noted it again because I was paying attention to it, but it wasn't the significance. It's after he killed all these people, he gets into the car, and all of a sudden there's this song that says, "I am the god of hellfire, and you will burn." Da da da, ba ba da ba. And right, and so he's driving, and that song is on, and I'm thinking, he doesn't even recognize that the gods or God or the universe is speaking to him about him, or it's speaking to them, those who he killed, or to the politics. But all I know is it was uninterpreted, it was incidental, it was pedestrian to the guy. So anyway, that happened. That made me think about things because one's phenomenological relationship to their universe, one's consciousness takes in all sorts of information, right? I mean, it could be anything. My heater just went on in the background. It could be the light. It could be my tinnitus in my ear. All sorts of things. Anyway, politics is crazy. So the reason I watched it the third time was because I wanted to get snippets of the film, right? So that I could make a video of this eventually. Lots is going on. I'd sure like to coordinate some video. Got some new software on this other computer, but there's something I'm missing. Even when I search for the answer, but I'll find the answer eventually and I'll get around to it. But my mind's been kind of scat over all sorts of other little things from painting to crypto and so forth. So okay, what do I call this? Politics, contradiction, and crypto. Let's skip to crypto, right? So there's this idea of one standard economy, right? And then there's the high tech of what's actually going on in the crypto universe. Shit. I was wondering if I even had it on me. Where'd I put that thing? Hang on. Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry, I'm skipping around. I'm weirded. Anyway, I have a hard mind, right? So I got this hard mind from China, but it's kind of loud and it's not going to yield very much. I had some other guy running it, and then I was going to hook it all up and everything. If I had it within arm's reach, I'd go grab it and show it to you. It's called a Z9. And anyway, it runs like Zcash, and it runs these other, I'll say, suboptimal coins. But at one point, it was promising. But now there's new mines and new techs, and everything's moving at kind of a breakneck speed to the point where I wonder what is useful with crypto, right? There was just like I got locked out of this one Russian exchange, and their customer support is really bad. So I've already been at them twice, and I'm bummed because you can get a password from them. When you lose your password and you ask for a new one, they'll send you an email there. But then they have this little, two-factor thing where they're like, hey, we're going to send your email a code. Well, I never get the code. I never get the code in my email. So that's a problem, right? So I'm working on that. Lose $100 there. There's all these micro exchanges. There's even this coin called Micro that's all about setting up all these ERC20 or Ethereum-based coin exchanges like all over the planet, so that there's really no way, or there's too many for any government to follow what kind of exchanges are going on in terms of people's money and what kind of currency they're using. And so it's really fascinating. And then this Cryptopia, they got hacked. I just barely got into something called Master Nodes. Master Nodes is kind of like Dash. Dash was a huge thing locally, right? So Dash is this like it's kind of a master node, meaning those who collect enough of the coin initially have some sort of voting power of the coin, and then any transactions that are occurring beneath the master node yield some profit to the master node. So they become extremely, extremely profitable, regardless of whether or not the coin is going up or down. They're getting paid. So now there's this huge influx of master node coins that are coming out that kind of mimic Dash. And then there's these tanks where people are dumping money into it. There's all sorts of shit going on. So I just got done getting this Me Rebel coin, which is like it's Mary, Meri, and it's got the emblem from Star Wars of the rebel camp. Totally got hacked, right? Lost, I don't know what, $50 in that. So that was upsetting. And then this other one, right? Um, they had a wallet issue, so it was just all of this like security breach, trying to work with these like these people that co-opt Discord, and like, so Discord's co-opted for pump and dumps, and was involved in one of those stupidly, that didn't have a chat room, and so that one was totally like volunteering to get yourself had. That was a big problem. That was a fucking problem. Um, anyway, the point is these other ones are using Discord, and their subgroups that are running the like group accumulation of crypto for masternodes. It's really profitable when you're in on it. I mean, it's got a good yield, and it's a super fast yield because then crypto's going up again. We're in a bull market. Remember, bull means the bull fights upward, rah, right? In a bear market, the bear fights downward. In case you guys didn't know that little idiom, um, and you're supposed to be ahead of the 8 ball, not behind the 8 ball, and you want to be in the black, not in the red. What do you guys think of these glasses? Okay, so anyway, people can develop cryptocurrency. Now, my point of I'll bring all this up, right? Because I ramble, right? Is that my goal in getting into this after I just got this initial base thing going on, right? And I test run anything before I recommend it. I test it for a while to figure out how it's working. Is it crashing? Is it getting hacked? What's going on, right? So, for example, this company that was called Eyeline, they're in the States, right after the 2017 December 10th 2017 regulation that kicked in that turned it into a security in the U.S. Boom! By the end of the year, that loss was distributed globally, shutting down all sorts of American citizens' access to what's going on in the market globally. So then you got to get a VPN so you can do the global workaround, all that other yada. All of this to kind of strip away from, to attempt to remove that which the US has as far as a capitalistic grip, like the last remnants of our Federal Reserve and our capitalistic industrial war machine playing this risk game, taking over countries. Like if you watch you watch mainstream news, you'll get people on the right and the left going, yeah, we want Madero out of Venezuela. And then you find all these other people saying, no, this is the same thing as in Nicaragua and Haiti and Libya. It's just this like takeover of these countries, putting in our puppet regime, our puppet masters, right? And so that really they say no, their elections are great, and that it's the U.S. trying to put in this Trojan horse instead of aid, right? Like it's really just this fucking Trojan horse. Right. And so there's all these real journalists are saying, no, they have plenty of food down there. They're having a hard time affording it because the US banks are locking them out. And that basically we're trying to co-opt their government because something about, the Koch brothers refinery in Texas only works with heavier oils, like in Venezuela, like in the Tarzans, but not in the States. And so we want to get control of that. And that even Venezuela was giving like philanthropic aid to people in the States, which I thought, God, this is fucking incredible, right? Anyway, the whole point is that the Federal Reserve, since the 1913, and then these acts of being a secured party creditor versus a debtor, right? These are like legal positions that every citizen can take a role, but to become a secured party creditor, you have to file a bunch of paperwork, right? But it's relative to the court system and the commerce, right? And how everything is one grand corporation, your local municipality, your state, your country. I mean, uh, Washington D.C. is not considered itself a corporation, but every other aspect, it's like every state is itself a corporation under law, and then you can split out like, oh, you know, in what extent is it a corporation, and what extent are you traveling? And I mean, there's all sorts of videos. You guys have heard this kind of stuff, right? Look it up, Google it, right? Google up, secured party creditor status and maritime law sort of things, and birth certificates and the history of these words, right? Anyway, so but the whole point is that there is some cabal that seems as if it has to do with kind of like the fact that um, Jews, can I use the word Jews, Jewish people run, they're the chairs or the head of the board, or the majority of the people that are on the board of the Federal Reserve, right? And that like Stanley Fisher, he stepped down, I think. Yellen, I think she stepped down, right? But Stanley Fisher, he's a co-citizen with Israel. And you talk about Kushner, Donald Trump's son-in-law, getting all this high clearance, and Netanyahu saying, yeah, we've known him since he was a little boy, right? And so this whole idea of he's the Mashiach, or he's the upcoming like king, people are making this, they're trying to do some sort of like quick prophetic optic on what the future might bring, right? As far as how Kushner is supposed to be positioned as a power player in the future, and that how everything is still heavily moving towards Israel things, and how there's laws that are coming into place that you can't even mention Israel in any negative connotation or any criticism without taking on that anti-Semitic slight, and that some sort of law, like a hate speech law, is being moved in. I didn't pick all that up, but the whole point is that with all of our, I think 300, it's like 3 billion or maybe 30 billion or 300 billion, like a shit gob of money every year goes towards Israel and to financing Israel, and why, and then where are the black box, where is this debt coming from, like how is all this happening, where is this money being lost that's not accounted for, trillions, right? I mean, we're worried about people on welfare, we're worried about the homeless. Back to the crypto. So I'm getting way off topic. Sorry, I can ramble too long. As you guys know, being my longtime viewers. So what ends up happening, there's a lot of homeless people still, right? Even in Las Vegas at nighttime, it gets cold, right? So I figured a cryptocurrency, and anyone that wants to develop a cryptocurrency, and my goal in cryptocurrency and in politics, right? If I'm to develop a cryptocurrency, it's going to be one that supplies kind of like electric heating vests and electric heating gloves to the homeless, where they have a charge station like a Tesla joint, or that every day they can drop them off and have them cleaned and or recharged such that they could pick them up again at night, or that they check it out, but that there's a blockchain that's running, that's controlling all this, right? So one of the biggest problems with cryptocurrency still that kind of make itself just this pipe dream, right, is that it has its, as far as its grounded application, it's really difficult to see how it's applied, right? Like to the world, to the empirical world, right? So, like the cannabis coin, for example. Oh yeah, it was supposed to monitor, like, oh, here's one plant, and it knows all the plants, and it knows how much water went into this plant, and it knows, how much sunlight or how much blah blah blah, and its location, and it's, is it sativa or is it uh, the other one, and just every fact about the plant, and that somehow it was supposed to log all this information, And then, like, when the plant is brought to market or sold, then somehow the value of that particular plant yields a certain amount of the coin or something like that, right? Like the application of the real world, like the coins can be programmed, they should be programmed, but that seems to be this problem, right? And so I was trying to figure out, like, okay, in what way could one distribute or fund a vest and then distribute it to the homeless and acquire a certain crypto for it, right? And then to develop the miners and develop the staking and all that. But to me, that's like we're worried about all this global international shit, which is fine, right? So you got the external of your nation, you got the domestic, internal, the intra and the inter. So the intra, I mean, start at the base, right? Okay, who you get? You get enough welfare and Social Security, so you don't just have grandma out in the street, right? But then, who do you have in the street? Well, you have a bunch of fucking homeless people. Some of them, albeit, are grandmas. Nonetheless, anything above what the hell is my latitude? I don't even know my latitude, right? I used to know my latitude. Anything above this latitude, maybe a little bit below, maybe somewhere along northern Oklahoma, let's say, right? Maybe above North Carolina, right? Anything above there in the wintertime, we need to just supply these vests, right? You can go on Amazon, you can look up electric heated vests, gloves. We got the tech, folks. We're rocking and rolling. Now it's getting a community together that can get behind something, roll it out. I don't give a shit if I make the coin or someone else makes the coin. I just want this to be funded, right? One way or the other. Politics, policy, how to take crypto and develop basically 3D virtual reality descriptions of where every bit of political money is spent, what each person that holds anything in any government position makes, kind of develop like a treed out vision of what our government looks like. Like the first people that should be transparent and lose their anonymity should be the government. Um, I think they should become statesmen again. Okay. Anyway, so enough of that being said. Politics, a little bit of the crypto, contradiction, contradiction. Okay, so uh, what is it? It's logophoricity. Logophoricity. Now, logophoricity is this idea of the problem with pronouns, not the problem with pronouns, but right contradiction. There's a lot of things to do with contradiction, right? We could run over a few things about contradiction. I was getting in this debate about quantity, right? Because I think quantity is one of the things that is the most difficult to um, develop a contradiction or a kind of a context in which to speak about how a contradiction could come into play, right? And so, anyway, how to tie all this together, right? Logophoricity, though, is kind of like saying uh, uh, Jim says that they gave him. Jim says that he gave them a burger, or Jim was there when they said that. God, how would it go? They said that they gave Jim a burger, and then you say that again. They said that they gave Jim a burger, right? Like, well, in the first case, uh, that the referent of the they, it could be him, it could be whom's, he's, him's, hers, whom's, anything where you don't know the first indexing because you don't know if it's referencing the speaker. So there's kind of this disjunct or a disallocation of the speaker's uh, placement within a sentence. Oh yeah, he gave it to him. No, no, really, he gave it to him and he gave it back. Yeah, no, no, yeah, 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 he gave it to him and he gave it back. Right. So, which whom gave it to whom first, and where's the referent? Right. So then there's this anaphoria. Uh, Anaphoria, anything that's a referent to something that was established back in time, right? So now here's the thing about contradiction, right? For example, can a bachelor be an unmarried man? Right. So in my book, I lay all this out, right? If you go to MikeVale.com, you can scroll down, you can still log into that book. I'm going to do one more final edit, right? But you can get the PDF there, MikeVale.com. Embedded contradiction. Okay, so can a bachelor be an unmarried man? Well, the first indexing is there's a man named Bachelor that's married. Boom. We're not going to count that one. But there. Okay. Yes, that already answers yes to the question. Okay. Number two, can a bachelor be a married man? I think you guys catch my drift. Can a bachelor be a married man? In context, well, uh, you could have, right. There's this notion that the people that are kind of like first entering, kind of like they're sophomores with paraconsistent logic. They would just use something like, oh yeah, yeah, well, in uh, you know uh, on the high seas, um, it's legal to marry in one location, and then but when they're at one port, they wouldn't it wouldn't be like considered or ratified or as a marriage, and in another port it would be, right. But that would just be one aspect of a multivariant problem where you could say, okay, assuming that you're out to sea, but assume that whomever is marrying you is a priest, right? So you can talk about marriage as a legal marriage. You can talk about marriage as a religious marriage, covenant or bonding. You can talk about it as a social recognition. Your community recognizes you as married, right? So already you'd have these three sub indexings of what it means to be married. Well, legal of the state. So you get a priest and he marries you, and everyone agrees you were married, blah, blah, blah. But then you find out, well, he wasn't actually legal to marry you. Oh, even if you sign these paperwork, he still wasn't legal to marry you. So therefore you're not married, right? Um, but you don't know whether or not he's legal. But you get justice. You get a priest then, let's say you don't know if he's legal to marry you relative to the state, but let's say he also lost his priesthood. He had a problem with whatever the religion was, right? Then you might not be married within the church, right? Um, so that would be one variant. All these unknowns there, right? And then let's say, do you take this woman to be your, lawful wedded wife, to have to hold the death do you part? And the guy grunts like, oh, and the whole crowd goes, "Yeah, you may now kiss the bride." But he didn't say it. He just grunted, and then it's assumed as something, right? And so he even carries on like he's gotten married, but he really didn't get married, right? And then let's say that there aren't two witnesses, right? There's not two legal witnesses. There's no sense of community, right? And then you're on a boat, right? And let's say all of these unknowns are all mixed together. So you get this kind of network of um, agnostic positions, right? And then let's say that there's no way to find an answer out, right? Let's say that the husband says something, everyone assumes that he said yes, and then he didn't say that he didn't, but he ends up dying that night or something. Was he married? Or the priest falls overboard and no one can look up his legal records, something like that. Anyway, the whole point is if you can't ever come to an answer, then you got a problem. Okay, this is the dull part of everything, right? Anyway, and you guys can go to the book because it's a really pretty dull book. But I was getting in this argument with this guy about quantity, right? Like, okay, hey, if there's a jar full of gumballs, either you're going to get an even amount or you're going to get an odd amount, right? And there's no way around it. You're going to either get an even amount or an odd amount. And I said, well, wait. I said, isn't truth based on agreement? He goes, no. Truth is not based on agreement. I'm like, no, it seems as if you have to have intergenerational linguistics to maintain what a thing is. I said, because absence of a mind, like a mindless universe, he says, oh, even in a mindless universe, you'd still have waters going across rocks. And I'd say, yeah, but who would be making the declaration about what the water was and what the rock was, right? What the mud was, what a soft rock was, what water was relative to something else. Without a mind to disambiguate, you can't even speak about the edge of a thing, right? Some things like my body might say, oh, you're orient, you have a limit, and then all that skin's falling off, and I'm respirating, and what's the limit of a thing? Anyway, so I said, well, the biggest problem here is quantity, right? And so if somebody says, oh yeah, here's a jar full of gumballs, and it's either even or odd, I say, well, I said that might be a problem because some of those gumballs you might see something that looks like this, that like, and this other ball, it looks like a ball, right? But this other ball looks kind of like a mitosis split. It's kind of, oh, is that 2 or is that 1? Oh, we're going to call it 1 there. Oh, it looks like 1. But you're agreeing to that, right? Well, if it's like that, it's still stuck together. Is that 1 or is that 2? Is that 1 or is that 2? Well, and you get into this whole argument like that. And then I'm like, and then what about the gumballs? You get a gumball and it's missing this whole gap, right? You're going to call that a gumball? What happens if it's missing that much of the gap? Is that a gumball? Like, when does a gumball cease to be a fucking gumball? And when is it doubled up as a gumball? And can't you agree? And it's like, oh yeah, well, no. And it's like, well, look, the quantity about whether or not there's 17 or 18 in this jar, 17, 16, 16, 17, 18, and in the jar is dependent on agreement. You have to first agree if that's 1, 2 gumballs, if that's and what's not a gumball. And I said, and then what happens if a minute piece of gum lands at the bottom of the jar, but it's in the shape of a sphere? Is that one also a gumball, right? And so you got all these definitions within the gumball thing. So you get somebody like a Still-A-Honey guy, right? Oh, well, it's the case that it is the case that there's either an even number or an odd number of there, and that's just it, right? And I'm like, well, that's not it, right? Read the book, read my book, right? Because truth is still dependent upon agreement, right? Anyway, so that was just one great conversation to have with this guy, because and I it even came down to, can what is 1 and what is 2 be established, right? And I thought, well, how does one back out of that, right? And I thought, well, since normally, after we use the empirical world, we're like, hey, how many fingers you got? This one piggy went to market, and this piggy went, and this piggy had none. And you teach kids about their piggies, right? And what quantity is, right? But then I thought, okay, so there's this relationship, your referential relationship to your empirical world, right? How could I screw that up? There's 2. Look, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. We know how to do that. And then I thought, well, okay, so where could a contradiction occur there? And I thought, well, you just have to, if someone's cockeyed, I could cross my eyes wrongly or rightly and see 3 fingers now. Damn, now there's 3 fingers there, right? because now that one's crossed over and it looks like that to me. This looks like three. There's three. There's three, right? There's four, right? Just keep crossing the eyes, right? And so there has to be this domain of agreement. And then the whole point is that one's phenomenology, one's ontology, and one's epistemology all hold into these wraps and these elements. And there doesn't seem as if there's any case scenario about anything where one could not find a caveat, a disjunction, and hence creating a dichotomy of contrast. Now, a dichotomy itself, explicitly is not the same thing as a contradiction, but a dichotomy is a contrast where there is things that, if carried on about, they would fall into contradiction. Anyway, so now I'm a bad one, and I want to finish this up. Shit with like people that wake up and they see their life, and all of a sudden they're in the flower of life around them, and they see things in geometries, and they see the pyramids, and they look at Da Vinci's Man, and it's well scaled, and everything is perfect and uniform, and you have the Star of David. Speaking of Israel, right? The six-sided star, and that's made up of two triangles that are intersecting one another, and one is hierarchical and the other one is the contrary to the hierarchical, and within that enfolding together, right, you'll get this equal positioning where the body's symmetry and the geometric symmetries are aligned, and you can see Fibonacci shapes and the mathematics within the world. And anyway, so that being said, you're right, and that these are people that kick into this mode, which I think is great, right? Where you're in one case you're what do you call it? You're analogic. Right? It's all just BIOS, right? And then the next one, you're in the matrix. Everything's just digital. Even your molecules are just data points, right? Data energy points somewhere in this space, coagulated, and it's all just on off, existence or non-existence. Anyway, so I don't know why I'm showing you this, but to me, so I'm not quite certain how to articulate this, right? But so when you take this orthographic, right? Let me start here. So I was thinking, like, how am I going to put this in the book? How am I even going to articulate my point about what's going on when people fall into this certain geometries, right? So you guys start out here with these triangles, start with that triangle, then you get them there, you get that there Star David, right? And the top one, right? Problem the penta and the hexa, two different there's a disjunct, right, between the penta and the hexa. But anyway, so focus on that Star of David right there, right there, right. Now a 3D Star of David, that's an orthographic press of a Merkaba. Well, what's Merkaba? Well, that's a Merkaba, right? It's the 3D one, right? And then I got to thinking. Right? It was dawning on me that what happens if your Merkaba, right, was you had a three base triangle and a 3 base triangle running into each other, or you had a 4 point base triangle running into a 4 point base triangle, which I don't have on here, because in this one I did, okay, here's a 4 point base triangle and a 3 point base triangle mixed with a 3 base and a 3 base that are intersecting, right? Because I'm trying to figure out how does the penta mix between the ortho, the what do you call it? The hexa. Getting that right? 6. anyway, and so then it dawns on me, right? Because I'm having this thing between 5 and 6. It's really problematic, and it's only somehow solved in geometry. And I'm like, what the hell? How do I solve this? Right? How do I solve this seemingly? I'm not even quite certain how to articulate it because it's kind of like a geometry, like ge- a, 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 a geometry problem, but it's not even a problem. Well, I'm certain it is a problem. I just don't know what it's called in math, right? It's kind of like you have 3 points to a triangle, right? And then you make a square, you have 4 points. You retain this kind of symmetry, right? 2 points, you got one line. Then three, you can have a symmetric triangle. Then you have a cube, right? And then you could add a fifth one, but all of a sudden now there's your pentagram, right? There's something that where it's not symmetrical all of a sudden when you have penta. Six, though, you even out 6 points, and you that's still symmetrical, right? So somehow the penta, the five, even though they're even, you can't split it and have it be even in all, like in like at least three divisions, right? Because you got your first autumn out, which is different than the triangle. In my mind, it's different than the triangle, right? And so then I'm trying to tie. Well, then how do I figure out how to take that pentagram and show its geometric placement, its balance, if you will, to the six, right? That's the whole root of the problem, and I'm going to figure out how and why and how this is applicable. By the way, anyway, the whole point was it kind of dawned on me, right? Because you do these orthographics, right? You do an orthographic push again, right? So instead of this, what you do is you start out with a regular pentagram, right? So don't imagine that outline, right? But it's 5 point, and then what do? Well, you run the sixth point off of it, right? Like, okay, but that's kind of a straight line there. Like, okay, there's a problem. There's the problem. And then I realized something, right? So I drew this one then, right? And you see the pentagram in there, and then you draw the lines going around it. And I could draw them in that line right there. Should probably go in, right? But anyway, the whole point is about the six, right? So I'm trying to bond the 6 points with the 5 points, the pentagram. And it dawns on me that one of these this, like, spiritually, like the kind of like the entrance, the stargate, if you will, or the mental, uh not a palimpsest, but it kind of requires kind of like the old lady, young lady, duck rabbit perspective flip flop, right, between the orthographic, that which is flat, and that which is 3D. The difference between the Star of David and the Macabre, right, is the difference between the orthographic and the flat, and then the 3D, right? So with this particular problem, though, it dawned on me that what I found here, like, and I'm not even certain how this is applicable. I'm not even certain how I'm bringing it up, but I'm bringing it up because it's a problem I've been working on. So it dawned on me, like, this, just the hard black one. Okay, that's a three-sided pyramid, right? And it's attached to the three-sided portion of a four-sided, a four-base pyramid, right? And that this is the orthographic equivalent to bonding the hexa with the penta, such that when you pull it away from its orthographic flat, it will yield that particular shape. All right. Well, thanks, folks. Hope you guys can make heads or tails of what I was just saying there. Point about all that was that Penn, Star of David, Israel, Jewish thingamajiggy, Jacob's Ladder, Muslim war, Federal Reserve money, aliens, and shit and stit and intra world, into domestic are one world and outer. All right, I think you guys are on. Think we're on the same page, right? We're on the same page. All right. That being said, I think we're gonna about log out here, and someone's typing some goodness, but I'm not even gonna read it. No, we'll just have to say, oh. Last thing. Oh, um, workwithmike.info. Workwithmike.info. Once again, this was the safest. This was the easiest. No one gets hurt with this one, as far as I know. Right? It moved from iLine. They migrated it over to take care of some of that government. To make certain that they're still compliant within U.S. law, even though the U.S. is getting screwed. It's still an internationally applicable law. If you have $40 of Bitcoin, just go to workwithmike.info. And we're not even going to, or you're not even supposed to say the name now, right? That's how illegal it is for shit going on in the US to be compliant, right? But you can tag off of the referent. So that's what you're doing. You're running workwithmike.info to my referent, to the company. But if you have $40 of BTC, you probably want to get at least, that's Bitcoin BTC. If you get that, what you do is you put it in there, because you don't need all this hash tank. You don't need all this extra stuff. I don't know how to program the shit, but you don't need miners, and you don't need the tanks and the master nodes. Just do something easy. Just to start your investment. Basically, they trade it for a year, and then they give it back to you, and then you keep that profit margin. So it's like a low hedge fund that you can build. Who knows? All I know is if you have $40 of BTC, probably like $45 in case the market moves, right? Just put it in there and just sit on it for a year, and then come back and you can say, "Hey, Mike, you told me so." All right, cheers. Bada boom, bada bing, bada boom, bada bing, bing.